Alan Moore, Swamp Thing, two names that changed comics forever. Before Moore, Swamp Thing was a decent horror comic. After, a groundbreaking work of literature. Moore took a forgotten character and gave him depth. He explored themes never seen before in comics. Swamp Thing was never just a monster, he was a scientist. Alec Holland transformed. Moore took that tragedy and made it poetry. He asked, what does it mean to be human? What is the nature of consciousness? Moore's Swamp Thing wasn't just fighting villains, he was grappling with existence. He was a creature of the swamp, connected to all plant life. This wasn't just a superhero story, this was something new, something special. Moore didn't just change Swamp Thing, he changed horror. He brought in elements of folklore and mythology. His Swamp Thing wasn't afraid to be scary, but it was also beautiful, lyrical, and deeply moving. Moore's stories were complex. They dealt with environmentalism, social issues, and the human condition. He wasn't afraid to tackle difficult topics, in fact he embraced them. This wasn't your typical comic book horror, this was horror with heart. Horror with intelligence, horror that made you think. Moore's Swamp Thing wasn't just a comic book, it was a challenge to the industry and to readers. It said comics can be more, comics can be art. Moore introduced us to the green. This interconnected web of plant life became central to Swamp Thing's identity. It wasn't just about the environment, it was about connection, about belonging. Moore's characters weren't black and white, they were shades of grey. They made mistakes, they struggled, they were real. This complexity was groundbreaking. It made the stories richer, more meaningful. It forced readers to confront difficult questions. There were no easy answers in Moore's Swamp Thing. This wasn't just a comic about a swamp monster, it was a comic about us, about our relationship with nature, about our own humanity. Moore's writing was unlike anything seen before. He used innovative panel layouts. He played with dialogue and narrative structure. He wasn't afraid to experiment. His collaborators, artists like Stephen Bissette and John Tottleben, brought his vision to life. The art was lush, detailed, and haunting. It perfectly captured the tone and atmosphere of Moore's stories. Moore's Swamp Thing wasn't just about the words or the art, it was about the marriage of the two. It was about creating a complete and immersive reading experience. This was a new kind of comic book storytelling. It was bold, experimental, and unforgettable. It pushed the boundaries of what comics could be.